Okay. And I'll make it full screen. You can see it, right?
Yes.
All right. Radhe Radhe, everyone. Good morning, good evening, depending upon whichever part of the world you are in. So let's get started with our opening prayers. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwarah, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्. All right. So once again, Radhe Radhe, and let's get going. So today we will be discussing Bhagavad Gita Shloka 6.24 and 25, which relates with dealing with uncontrolled desires, which is what our mind is kind of a perfectionist in doing. Okay, and as always, these are the four Bhagavad Gita commentaries to which we are referring. So we can start with the recitation of the shloka. I can first recite it and then anyone else who's interested. सङ्कल्पप्रभवान् कामान् त्यक्त्वा सर्वान् शेषतः मनसि सैविन्द्रियग्रामं विनियम्य समन्ततः. Yes, Sri Ramya ji, Radhe Radhe. Here.
राधे राधे सङ्कल्पप्रभवान् कामान् त्यक्त्वा सर्वामशेषतः मनसैवेन्द्रियग्रामं विनियामास मन्ततः. Thank you.
Thank you. And Patusha ji, you're daring with throat. Amazing.
Yes. Yeah. Sankalpa prabhavan kaman त्यक्त्वा सर्वान् अशेषतः मनसैवेन्द्रियग्रामं विनियम्य समन्ततः.
Awesome. So thank you both, and let's dive into the meaning of this shloka. So we can probably first, Shri Ramya ji, have you raised your hand again, or I think it's from before. So okay. So yes. So mostly it's the same from all commentaries. So what it is saying, that completely giving up all desires arising from thoughts of the world. And we have discussed it so many times. There are two kinds of desires: desires of spiritual world and material world. So we are talking about the material world here, right? And restraining the senses from all sides by the mind. So one should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born out of mental speculation and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. So the idea is, there are a couple of things mentioned here, right? One thing is, get rid of all the materialistic desires. Second thing is, where are they coming from? They are somewhere coming from our senses, and that we will discuss more. So let's first dissect this shloka. So the first part is Sankalpa Prabhavan Kaman Styaktva Sarvan Sheshatah. So thoughts of worldly things, persons and incidents keep coming to our mind. And I mean, I think all of us who would have tried to do meditation, and even not meditation, even if we would have tried to do continuous nam jap, we would have realized that sometimes we end up getting into, zones where we are not thinking about nam or God. I mean, at least for a practitioner like me, when we end up thinking about something which is worldly or materialistic, right? So, and why is that? Because our mind is not totally detached from material world and attached with God, right? So, the thoughts of things we are attached with keeps coming to our mind, and they could be positive or negative. That means that can be an attachment with something, a positive attachment, which is hankering, we want that thing, or aversion, which is negative attachment. But both are kind of put in the same category, right? Because we are giving our mind space to them. So once we think about these things, at that time it is called spruha, something like that. And then when we repeatedly keep thinking, then it becomes sankalpa. Sankalpa is nothing but a pursuit of mind or a desire that I want to fulfill. And I think we have discussed this earlier also, that desires can either get fulfilled or not fulfilled. There are only two possibilities, right? If they get fulfilled, they result in greed. If they get unfulfilled, they result in anger. So, both ways, we are getting more into the cycle of material world and moving away from our real goal, right? And other aspect is that this seed of desire can actually end up becoming a big tree. So, what is really needed to be done is to burn the seed. If we try to bury it, it can still sprout whenever the appropriate, suitable environment is there. So, the idea is to burn these material desire, and that's what we are going to learn and discuss. How can we actually burn them? So, yeah, this says the term karma, desires, it's plural. That means there's not a single material desires, right? As it says that things, persons, incidents, we might have attachment to various things. But yet to emphasize that all desires of different kinds should be abandoned. So sarvan means basically that everything. And asheshita means that the seed of desire should be completely destroyed. So as we said that it has to be burnt, not just buried. Otherwise, it will sprout under conducive circumstances. So, what does the next part says? Um, Mana sevindriya gramam viniyamya samantataha. So, this is the next part. So, we talked about materialistic desires, and the second part talks about where are they coming from. They are coming from our attachment of the senses with the sense objects. So, we all know we have five senses and they get attracted towards the sense objects. So, which we think gives us pleasure, which we tend to overlook that it is very temporary and not everlasting, right? And more importantly, anything that we see, that anything material that seem to provide us pleasure is actually a cause of pain in the future. So that is why it is said that this material world is Dukhalayam Ashashvatam. So it is full of miseries and it is also temporary. It's not permanent. Okay. So, and in the mind, there should not be any temptation for worldly praise, honor, and comfort. In the least, one who practices meditation should resolve to renounce affinity for all material objects. So, which basically means that we should become neutral, we should become equanimous. And that can only happen if our attachment with these materialistic objects ceases. Okay. So, discussing this further, what do you think are the two objectives of meditation? It's kind of what we have been discussing so far, but anybody wants to specify what they think are the objectives of our meditation, especially on the path of bhakti? Anyone? What is it that we would want to attach our mind with? And if there is something we would want to detach our mind from? Okay, something came in the chat and I see Patusha Di's hand is. Yes, Patusha Di, go for
Yeah,
it.
yeah, attaching our mind to God and detaching from the world.
Perfect. Bingo. And I think Kumarji also answered it right. So that's it. So most of the time when we are a practitioner, our mind keeps straying in these, worldly thoughts, our family, our office, our work, our our whatever objects, sense objects, right? And this is where we need to detach our mind. And God, that's where we need to attach our mind. And in fact, today, where like just maybe few minutes back, Rahul ji had shared two lines which I really liked, so I thought I'll share here. Chinta kare mile bimari, chintan kare mile bihari. So on the left is actually chinta that we keep doing all the time. And on the right is chintan that we should be doing. And that's when we achieve our real goal, right? So this is a very nice line. So I just thought I can share this. Okay. Now let's understand a little bit about our mind and its attachments and the kind of cycle we get engaged in. Um, so I was telling about this Kathopanishad chariot analogy. Maybe many of you might remember it. We have discussed it so many times, right? But this is basically that our body is analogous to this chariot, and then these horses are nothing but our senses. The reins which connect the driver and the horses um, are the mind, and the driver is actually our intelligence, our intellect. And this is also suggesting, something which is the highest within this category, which should be controlling everything. I mean, not highest, but it should be the controller. So that is the intellect, which is informed with the right knowledge. And then the soul is the person sitting in the chariot. So, so basically, if the horses take the control of the chariot will not go anywhere, right? And horses can take control only when they become stronger. And when they become stronger, when they are given the food in excess, right? So that is a problem we end up doing. So horses are our senses, and their food is the sense objects. Some of the examples are here, but of course, this is not all encompassing, right? So, so if we keep feeding them a lot, we keep giving the senses their sense objects without even being conscious about it, just for so-called short-term pleasure, then they will take control of the whole chariot, and the intellect will not be able to do anything. So the horses will control our mind, and the mind will control the intellect, and the soul will be sleeping back at the chariot without having any knowledge of where to go, how to go, what to do, right? But ideal situation is to make this stronger, the intellect stronger, and only way to make it stronger is by having the right sankalpa, the right attachment, the right knowledge, which is the knowledge about our absolute truth. With that, we make the intellect stronger, and then the intellect should control the mind and hence the senses, not the other way around. So, um, so we can probably, as a community, discuss some of the tools that we may have experienced, practice to turn our mind away from the material world. I'm going to mention some of the things that I could think of, but we can always add on to it. So first of all, it all starts with attachment. We can have positive attachment, which is anchoring, or negative attachment, which is aversion. Attachment leads to flashes of thoughts, which is called sphurna. So, like if we are attached to, say, rasmalai, we'll get thoughts of rasmalai. Now, if we get to eat, then that desire becomes stronger. Or if we get to see it, and if we find it accessible, or if we make it accessible to us, or we keep contemplating about that object, then it becomes really a desire or sankalpa. So the idea is to break this flow, right? So in my understanding, I thought that at this level, how can we break is kind of by keeping ourselves away from these sense objects, not having in our vicinity. Or for example, some people can get addicted to simply scrolling things on their phone, or say scrolling reels on Instagram or whatever, right? So if they keep their phone away from their access for the times they want to concentrate on their work or something else, then that is one way of kind of something away from sight, away from mind kind of a thought process. So at this level, I thought that one of the simple tool could be this. But at the level of flash of thought, this is really the seed. And if we can burn things here, um, it may not go to the next step of becoming a sankalpa. So I think the most important thing is witness consciousness. So we really can't stop the thoughts from coming, and it may not really help. But becoming aware of what we are thinking and where does it fall, whether it is a materialistic thought or a spiritual desire, I think that can really help. And of course, redirecting thoughts. So whatever sense objects we want to engage our senses in, if we can redirect those thoughts as service to Krishna, which is really our ultimate goal, then probably it can help dealing with materialistic desires. So first part is about becoming aware, practicing witness consciousness. Second part is expanding this practice to all sorts of materialistic thoughts. Like first, we might be doing it only for things which we think much more frequently about, but eventually we have to become neutral and equanimous about everything. And then finally, constantly examine likes and dislikes to develop dispassion. It's like basically, again, kind of fitness consciousness, being self aware and observing our thoughts. So, anyone wants to add anything from their experience, or what they think could be a tool to deal with materialistic desires or thoughts? Yeah, Pratusha, go for it.
Yeah. Rather, they actually, I was thinking, like in the first of all, we all know, right, some of the things that bothers us, or we constantly think about, or so if we are able to identify them, then I think instead of you know uh, redirecting that thought, like, no, I will not think about this, but I will think about that. What I did was, I will attach, if I think about this, then I will, with it will follow God's image. So it, then it will always, it became a habit, and then naturally, I don't know how, uh, it just stopped. Then I will always, it will always come with God, 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 and then it just stopped coming. That's how it happened. So just wanted to
Perfect.
share.
Yeah. So actually, that's what I referred by redirecting. So one thing is to stop and think about something else. That is hard. But redirecting is like just add your love for God or the thoughts about God to it. And anything that you want to eat, offer that to God and eat as His prasad, like as an example. So I think then things can get under control. So yeah, Shri Ramya ji.
Radhe Radhe Sandaji. I had a question and some thought also here. So desire which comes from the material world and desire which comes from your soul, how do we differentiate it? Because at some point, the soul, that is us, we are residing in this material world, like we are touched by it. Like suppose, let's say that someone is in that student phase, so they want to get good grades. So is that a material desire, or is that a desire coming out of his duty? So once the student passes, he wants to get a good job wherein his skills, I mean, or at least wherein his expectations are met, like his skill grows, wherein he feels a sense of contribution and all those things. Now, this person might not be thinking of, I have to get a good package. Yes, getting a good package would also be a part of it, but what he would be looking for it is, okay, this is the sort of work which I want to do. So materialistic or something else. Now, someone is buying their first house. So let's say they're paying the rent and they say that no, buying a house might work out for me better. Instead of paying the rent, I pay a bit more, and then I'm released from the trap of rent. So I need to buy my first house. Then there'll be an expectation, okay, this is how my house should be, that is how my house should be. And you see, so materialistic desire or desire which comes from necessity. So then the person looks for a spouse, and they want to say that no, I want to get a good spouse. So again, is that materialistic? But again, you may think that no, this is part of the world. Like that's how the world moves forward. That's how we are here. So again, so when the person starts some having some sort of expectations here, should we go with such desires or expectations, or should we stop them? Because stopping them completely, again, it's being I think it's being false to our nature. Somewhere we are suppressing, or instead of letting go, like where to draw the line, and how do I know whether my desire is materialistic or if my desire is coming from the soul?
Okay, so first, like, I think that's a great question. And according to my little bit understanding, I think it's very much theory that I will speak, because I have not as of now realized the soul nature of mind. But theoretically, yes, I understand that truly we are soul, not this body, right? So, soul's only desire theoretically should be union with God, yoga, right? That you can see as service of God, depending upon what path we are talking about, right? Now, anything else which can be divided into various kind of, gunas based desires, like some could be sattvic desires, some could be rajasic or tamasic, right? So, I would say are all materialistic, unless they are accompanied with this ultimate thought that I want to achieve this to be able to serve God better. So one logic of flow is that this is the duty of the role that God has given me. So I should deliver it to the best as part of my service to God. So I feel that if that addition is always there with us, and if it is always there at the back of our mind, we are always in the constant remembrance of God and doing every action in His service, then I don't think so any desire is bad. But I mean, that I feel is the most important aspect of it. Otherwise, if it is simply if the end of it is a nice thing to take care of the society, family, or be good in the eyes of others. I mean, it could be many things, right? People can also be people pleaser. That all I would say can be either Rajasic or Sattvic, but it won't be Shuddha Sattvic, or it can't be the desire of the soul, in my limited understanding. So, yeah. Okay. Okay, this is something I should have said earlier, which was that a flash of thought, which is really the early stage or the seed stage, is like when we are looking ourselves in a mirror. That is something, of course, I'm seeing my image, but that is not permanent. When I move away from it, that goes away, right? But when we click a picture, that is more permanent. Now, that image of mine is going to be there forever. So, desire or sankalp, at the sankalp stage, it has become a picture that we have clicked with a camera. And at the stage of flash of thought, it is just looking in a mirror, which is transient, right? Which is only till the time I'm. So, it's better to stop it at that level rather than making it go further ahead, which is really hard to get rid of. Yeah. So, that was just one analogy. And ultimately, I think the most important thing in order to deal with anything materialistic which can come in our way for devotion, or our actual goal, is arming our intellect. There are, as I said, there are certain things which are theoretically embedded in our head, but how much can we bring it into our experiential reality, right? Which is the fundamentals. First is impermanence of the world. And I think each one of us end up experiencing many incidents in our day-to-day life which make us realize this. It's just that we tend to not maybe observe it that consciously. But if we do, then I think that will really help us in detaching ourselves from this material world, that it is actually impermanence. Nothing is constant. What I'm thinking right now, I may not think again, especially in the material context. How I am feeling right now, we say, right, Mera man aisa kar raha hai, but that is also not constant. So the impermanence of the world is like really a fundamental principle. If we try to remember this, detachment will become easier. And secondly, the only eternal relationship we have is with God, and God alone. Anything else, be it object, people, thoughts, aspirations, material aspirations, they are all non eternal. So, uh, Yeah, so that these two things I think are very fundamental, and if we can arm our intellect with this knowledge, this can help us deal with these attachments and desires. Okay, now we can move on. Yes, Pratushadi.
Yeah, I wanted to actually answer Shiramya's question.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, try actually. So, the soul as such has no desire. Soul is always fulfilled. Okay, so there is no desire in a soul. This desire is always coming from the mind, and um, so when we are in this material world, a pure mind or person with a pure intellect will want to love others, will want to serve others, all those, and will not have any competition, will do his or her best without focusing on the result. So that is what will be the desire of a person, a soul who has a material body and who has a pure intellect, and a person who has a who is well established in his soul, um, um, they will be like acting with a Shuddha Sattva or at a Sattvic level. But on the opposite, a person who is not at that level has an impure intellect, depends upon how much clarity their intellect has or how much materially oriented the mind is, that person's desire will be. Either they will be more competitive, they want to defeat someone, they want to take something from someone, all kinds of. But desire will always come from that um, that material mind. And the more purer it becomes, ultimately we'll cross that from the sattvic to shuddha sattva, and then at that level it will be uh, to function as an instrument of God. So that is how it goes. That's what I feel.
Yeah, yeah, I agree completely. Awesome. So, with that, let's move on to the next verse. So, I'll again read it, and anyone else can feel free to follow. So, शनैः शनैरुपर शनैः शनैरुपर उपरमेद् बुद्ध्या धृतिगृहीतया आत्मसंस्थं मनः कृत्वा न किञ्चित् अपि चिन्तयेत्. Yeah. Anyone else who wants to go and do a better recitation, please take it up. Shiramya ji, Pratusha di, Dhruval, yeah, okay. Yes.
Okay, I'll try. शनैः शनैरुपरमेद्बुद्ध्या धृतिगृहीत्या आत्मसंस्थं मनः कृत्वा न किञ्चित् अपि चिन्तयेत्. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So with that, I think we'll move to the meaning. So just revising again quickly. In the next previous verse, we talked about two main things. One was controlling materialistic desires. Instead of saying controlling, we can say redirecting, right, to spiritual desires. And second thing was the main link is the senses with the sense objects, and that needs to be broken in order to kind of get rid of materialistic desires. Okay. So now next verse is talking about role of intellect. And I think again it is about when I say armed intellect, or Pratushadi said pure intellect, that is all about, which is purified with the right absolute truth knowledge about that, and which is firmly established in intellect. So when intellect is fixed firmly, a person should gradually attain tranquility. Again, here two words are really important. One is gradual and second is tranquility, right? With the mind centered on God, and he should not think of anything else. In the next translation also, gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. So, um, so basically, therefore, like I think two, three things. One thing is firm resolution of the intellect. that will, once that happens, then, and that is a process, right? So it will happen gradually, step by step. And as a result of that, one attains tranquility, or one gets situated in trance or kind of peaceful state, right? So again, we can do the dissection of this shloka. So, buddhya dhriti gritya. So, a striver should not feel dejected and disappointed that he has not been successful in meditation on God after practicing for a long time. So, this is really important, right? We need to understand that nothing is easy, even in this material world. So, forget about changing this conditioning of our mind, which is of lifetimes. It has developed these sanskars of looking for happiness in the material world, and we need to change it to the reality, which is happiness, absolute happiness is only God, right? So that will take its own time and its own effort. What we need to do is just consistent practice. And that's why it is, like Krishna has said, that it is a gradual process, and one needs to have that patience, that it will take a lot of practice. And one of the example that I always tend to remember is that when we were born, even to turn on the bed while we are lying down on the bed, even to take a turn, it was not an easy process. We did multiple attempts, we failed, we kept on trying, and then once, through that practice, we learned to turn. And that was like an aha moment at that point of time. I mean, I also don't remember, but I am sure that I would have gone through that process, right? So, so even for a simple materialistic thing which doesn't feel like anything right now to us, we have done so much practice and we have been so much patient. Now, this is something bigger, right? So, that has to really be there. So patience, determination, that he has to attain God, whatever may happen. So it's, this word is also very nice. Iron determination, that he will not leave his seat without realizing God, even though his body may get parched and even his skin, flesh, and bones may decay. This is like a very high state. And but we have had examples of that, like young kids like Prahlad, Dhruv, they underwent such a hard uh, like situation, condition, environment while they were meditating, and their whole soul goal was to attain God. So their body was going through a lot of hardships, but they were like just having this iron determination, right? So, thus he should control his intellect without caring for worldly pleasures, praise, honor, and comfort. So, whether it is any positive thing coming from the material world or negative things, they become neutral, right? And they have that one sharp focus that they want to attain God. And that is, so basically, the previous shloka was more about detaching your mind from the world, and this shloka is more about focusing on the goal for either, you can say, self or God. So I am saying everything from the perspective of Bhakti Yoga only. So I would say that on attaining God. Yeah. So in being, so the next part is in Sane Ruparamed. In being indifferent to worldly pleasure, he should not make haste. Again, we should not be in hurry, but he should become indifferent gradually and finally achieve quietude. He should have neither attachment nor aversion for pursuits of the mind. If we abandon a thing, there is a possibility of a feeling of aversion persisting for it, but there should not remain even a trance of the feeling of aversion for any object of the world. So it is said that we should become indifferent to it. Here, attainment of an attitude of indifference has also been mentioned. So, okay, I think we can just, as a lamp which receives light from the sun cannot illumine the sun, so mind which receives energy from God cannot have access to him, but can be indifferent to the world. Secondly, in the world, there is nothing but affliction, as we said, dukhalyam ashashvatam. Therefore, it is futile to think of the world. So one should become quite tranquil and indifferent. So the idea is that mind is made up of material world. Mind is made up of Maya, right? So the best it can do is to become indifferent towards that material world. and ultimately the soul will attain its goal. Um, yeah, and I mean, there's nothing good in this world anyway, which we think it is. So that will break when we get the right knowledge firmly established in our intellect. Okay. So again, coming from the previous verse that we just like 6.25, we talked about iron determination, right? So anyone has heard about the two pillars for the palace of bhakti? Any idea? What do you have you heard about this statement? There are two pillars for the palace of bhakti, और भक्ति के महल की दो आधारशिला हैं. ओके, श्रीरम्या जी, राधे राधे राधे, गो फॉर इट.
I don't know about pillars, but I heard about children of Bhakti from Pratisha ji's class, Gyan Vairagya.
Yeah, children of bhakti. Yeah, I agree. Gyan and Vairagya. But right now I'm talking about pillars of bhakti, and okay, it's coming more from a practitioner point of view. As a practitioner of bhakti, what are the two things which are really, really essential? And if we maintain them, we will really go forward, and we will actually attain the goal. And okay,
I'll take a guess.
yeah, sure.
Consistency and discipline.
Okay, that's good, and it's kind of related. Like, yeah. So basically, enthusiasm. Okay, yeah, Pratyush.
Yeah. I was thinking Shraddha and Prem.
Shraddha and Utsaha. Actually, like this is what I've learned. So I'm just like there is this saying कि भक्ति के महल के दो स्तंभ होते हैं, Shraddha and Utsaha. So enthusiasm and faith are the two pillars for the palace of bhakti, because faith is really the first step. Unless we believe that God is our true relative, unless we believe that God is everywhere, we cannot really move forward, right? And enthusiasm, we cannot be like, oh my God, I've tried so much. I've just tried to practice meditation so much and I've failed. I'm not going to do anything further. So that enthusiasm has to always be there, right? Like we have that infinite potential being the child of God, and we will attain our goal with the help of God, with the grace of God. But we have to maintain that enthusiasm. Like that's what is going to please God, that his children are actually maintaining that enthusiasm. And that's what is also mentioned by Rup Goswami. We know Rup Goswami is big acharya of bhakti. So he says that one can execute the process of bhakti yoga successfully with full heart enthusiasm, perseverance, like for the like I want to persevere through entire time, being patient, and determination. We talked about iron determination, by following the prescribed duties in the association of devotees and by engaging completely in activities of goodness. Okay, given the time, I think we'll also keep moving forward. And this is like the most favorite part of mine for today's Bhagavad Gita presentation. It's the story of the sparrow. And in some sense, we are going to have a Bhakt Charit as well. But for me, she is also a Bhakt or a devotee from whom we can learn and get inspired from. So, what is the story? So, there was this little sparrow who had her eggs. She laid her eggs along the shore of the ocean. But ocean is ocean. So, ocean's waves came along and took away the eggs. Now this, she was a mother, right? And she wanted to get her eggs back. So she actually requested the ocean that please give back my eggs. They are my children. I need to nurture them and take care of them, right? But of course, like little sparrow requesting ocean, nothing happened. But now the sparrow was really determined. So this is basically story of the iron determination that all of us should have in the path of bhakti. So the sparrow was really determined, and she decided to herself put efforts and get back the eggs. So what did she do? With her little beak, she started taking away drops of the ocean, because her aim was to empty the ocean and get back her eggs. Okay. Of course, it may sound unrealistic, but to that bird, her goal, she was so determined about her goal that She was not thinking about what sounds so-called practical and what doesn't, right? So she started this process without even asking from help from anyone after, So then Garud Dev, you can see in this picture, Garud Dev actually noticed these determined efforts of this little bird, and Garud Dev decided to come and appear and offer help. So he, of course, came, blessed the sparrow, and then, he challenged the ocean that either you give back the sparrow's eggs, or I will join her in the effort of drying you up completely. Now, it's not a little small bird anymore who's challenging or requesting the ocean. It is now the Garud Dev who can actually make that happen, right? So the ocean actually returned the eggs of the sparrow. So essentially, this is for us to learn that the what does iron determination mean? And for us, honestly, we don't even have to go all this way far. We just have to try and practice certain things that we have been told on a daily basis. So that is really the lesson for us. And so this is the second part of this shloka. So Atma samstha manha kritva, God, this is, but again, very beautiful part, which is what we need to constantly remember, that God pervades everywhere, even in thoughts. So thoughts are nothing except God, who is their base and illuminator. Secondly, God is eternal and always the same, without any modification. While persons, things, circumstances, etc., are born and they decay. So everything is perishable, right? But God is non-perishable. So whatever is perishable, in some sense, it has no existence. Like if we say existence is something that has eternal existence, all these material things have no existence. So fixing the mind on God and having a firm determination of the existence of God alone is what a striver should be doing. And na kinchit api chintayet. It has already been said that striver should not think of the world. God is all pervasive. He should also not think so. Um, so by that, his affinity with the mind will persist. A meditator and the mind will have their existence. So having resolved that God pervades everywhere, he should not think of anything else. Thus, by becoming tranquil, he will realize the ever-existent self. So, okay. So this, I think we can move forward. And this was like a little bit, a very small word cloud, which I thought can be useful as part of what we just learned from these slokas. So, like, neutral, indifferent is what our mind has to become towards all the thoughts, material thoughts specifically, right? Absolute truth is God, non perishable is God, exclusive devotion is we. So, mind cannot hang. If we are getting rid of materialistic desires, it has to be engaged in something, and that is what is exclusive devotion to God. God is all pervading, limitless, and permanent, right? So I thought that these are the things that we need to constantly remind our intellect, especially in cases of circumstances where we tend to forget them due to whatever materialistic miseries or gains, right? So these lines I'll just quickly read. These are also very beautiful. Waves rise in a sea, but in water there is neither sea nor waves. Similarly, in God there is neither world nor thoughts. Only He pervades equally everywhere. Clouds appear and disappear in the sky, but the sky remains the same. Similarly, while meditating, thoughts come to mind and slip away, while God, who is everywhere, remains the same. God is all around, inside as well as outside. Everything, sentient or insentient, animate or inanimate, is God Himself. He is both at hand and far away. He is incomprehensible because of His subtlety. He is all truth, all knowledge, and all bliss. Everywhere there is bliss, bliss, and only bliss, because everywhere there is only God, right? If somehow this knowledge can be firmly established in our intellect, how can we not be in eternal bliss? That is, I think, essentially yoga, if this is something that is absorbed in us in its entirety. So, yeah. So I think that brings me to the end of the Bhagavad Gita discussion for today. And now we can move on to the Bhakt Charit. Um, okay, we have, I think, good time to do so. If anybody wants to say anything at this point of time, feel free to go ahead. Otherwise, I'll just start with the Bhakt Charit presentation. Um, where is this? Yeah. Okay. Chat, I haven't looked at. Oh, Shraddha Saburi, that's right. Uh, that's right, Shiramya ji. That's again faith. Saburi, I don't know what does that exactly mean, but if anyone knows, maybe
Patience, patience.
patience. Okay, awesome. So yeah, same thing everywhere. Okay, so let's start with the Bhakt Charit for today. Today we are going to learn about story of Sadan Kasai. Kasai is actually a butcher. Sadan is the name. But now this butcher is like not simply a butcher. He is another elevated devotee of the Lord. And that's why Lord Jagannath himself gave proof of his devotion. So let's learn about it. So there was a saint named Sadan. He was born into a butcher family and he used to sell meat. But he was always engaged in devotion to the Lord, and he was so much devoted that great saints also used to come and listen to his discussions on God. Once he went to see Lord Jagannath. So earlier travel used to be not like, taking a train flight or something. It used to be by walk, right? So it will take some time and you will go through different villages and places, right? So he was going by foot and he went crossed a village, and he being a saint, he would beg for food. So so this is very nice thing. There is a divine attraction in the saints, because saints are the lovers of God, and whoever loves God starts getting the same traits as God. That is the grace and blessing of God. So, and God is all attractive, so even saints develop these divine attraction, right? So even though their appearance may appear disfigured, one feels like looking at them, talking to them, listening to them. This is because it's God's reflection coming through them. So, so when he came across a house, and there was this lady in the house who actually got attracted, but she got actually materially attracted towards the saint. He had actually gone to just beg for food, but she felt attracted. So she invited him to eat inside the house. Now, as per the rules, the sannyasi saints are not supposed to go inside anyone's house, but Sadan Kasai wasn't thinking of anything else. He was hungry. The lady offered shelter and food. So he was like, okay. So, and also a saint only has love and compassion for all the souls. They don't really discriminate male, female, and all that, right? So, the scriptures command that saints, this is something I already said. So, so now when he entered inside, the woman asked, "Where are you headed?" Knowing that he was traveling to Puri, she basically offered him to stay back at home for the overnight, so that he can then continue his travel the next morning. And again, this was his second mistake, that he said yes, and that was probably coming out of again his kind heart and compassion. So again, a sannyasi should not do this, but he ended up doing that. So, next part of this story was that this woman became lusty, and she tried to go closer to Sadan Kasaiji. And he, being a very genuine saint, he completely, stopped that from happening. And now this woman thought that probably he is not letting me come closer to him because I have a living husband. And if he dies, then he will let me come closer to him. And she ends up killing her husband in that lustful nature. Uh, and she went again to Southern Kasaiji or Saint Southern Kasaiji, and she basically communicated this. So he scolded her a lot, and he said, "This is a big crime and sin that you have done. And I'm going to leave from here." So when he was about to leave, the woman stopped him and threatened, "If you're not going to listen to me, if you don't get closer to me and if you don't listen to my lust and desires, then I'm going to put all the blame upon you and make everyone, make you go to jail." But Sadanji, he chose to remain righteous. Righteous, being righteous, is what is his role. He's a saint, he's a sannyasi, and he's going on his expedition to Jagannathji, and that's it, right? So he was like, "I am ready to accept death, but not wrong conduct." So this woman basically did what she, said, threatened for, and uh, basically all the villagers ended up believing in her side of the story, and they started beating him up, and they tied him and took him to the king the next morning. So, this is another nice part of the story where a faith of a devotee does not waver even under the harshest of circumstances. So now Sadanji is being beaten up, he's being tied, he's being taken to the king, he's going to get some sort of a punishment, right? And he's just thinking of Lord Jagannath, that this must also be a beautiful pastime of my God. Because they believe in this thought that my God is pervading everywhere, and anything and everything that's happening with me is being sanctioned by my God. So there must be a bigger purpose behind whatever is happening. So I'll just accept it. So, we have, I think, learned about this in six principles of surrender, that a surrendered soul aligns their will to the will of the God. And they know that God is my protector. So whatever is happening as per the will of the God. So there is no one else in front of the devotees, only God. So the devotees only see God as if everything is his pastime. So the king actually said that I will punish you only with your approval. So tell me whether or not you have committed a crime. Now, actually, a language of a saint only a saint can understand. The king did not end up understanding. So what Sadanji said is that I must have committed some crime in the past lives. That's why I'm getting this kind of a treatment right now. This is my prarabdh, but this has to be result of some of my sins that I would have done sometime, right? So a saint would have understood what is exactly the meaning of that statement. But the king thought that he has actually accepted that he did this crime. So I can now go ahead and give him the punishment. And the punishment was to cut both his arms. Because he was a saint, he was not killed, and the maximum punishment was to cut the arms. But both his arms were cut. Now Sadanji was fine after getting his arms cut. Also, he continued for his expedition to Jagannathji, and that this is very sweet thing. He said to Jagannathji, "I wanted to greet you with folded hands, but I don't have the hands right now." So this was his desire, and that's when two new hands emerged when he tried to pray to Lord Jagannath. So remember, we were discussing in this Bhagavad Gita session that what desire is coming from soul, right? I mean, I this desire was coming from soul in my understanding, right? So like the desire to serve God. So I don't need hands for anything else, but I need hands to greet my God. And with that purity of the desire, those hands appeared as a grace of God. So, and in fact, all the signs of beating disappeared. His body became strong, healthy, and stunning. So Sadanji finally folded his hands and prostrated in front of Jagannathji. And Jagannathji himself appeared and said, "Aren't you angry at me that I got you accused and punished without any mistake?" Sadanji told Thakurji, "Lord, I see your love in your every action." So this is how a saint really react in any situation which may appear pleasant or unpleasant in the worldly terms, right? Um, so with that, the conclusion. Sometimes a person following righteousness may face misfortune, but there can never be any misfortune for him. Do not consider your duty small, be it farming or business. It is good even if you have a small shop. Chant the holy name and live a simple life with whatever you earn from following a truthful life. So, being righteous is important because being righteous is getting closer to God. So your family will make great progress in the future. If you behave dishonestly and unrighteously, then one day you will have to cry for the same family for whom you behaved sinfully. So that is, I think, a practical advice from this story. With that, great. It's 2 more minutes left. So we have come to the end. And the write-up of this story will come your way this time on time without much of a delay. So yeah, with that, we'll all see each other next weekend. And if anyone wants to say anything, then yes, otherwise we can just close this. Okay. Yes, thank you, Radhe Radhe. See you all.
Thank you, Sandhya. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. See you all next weekend.